Well, we are still on the topic of UN Day, Siska. We've just had a lively conversation with those gentlemen discussing more about what actually the UN entails and its role in Indonesia. Why don't we go straight into that? Well, as a country that has gone through a long journey as the 60th member of the United Nations, or the UN, Indonesia has been maintaining its commitment to support and promote world security and peace. Here is a brief history on Indonesia's journey as a UN member. Let's take a look.
Indonesia's membership in the United Nations is a commitment towards international cooperation, peace and development. Indonesia joined the UN to show its presence in international organizations, take part in helping solve global issues and international conflict, promote world security and peace, campaign on human rights, as well as increase development and end extreme poverty.
Statement by the President of the Republic. Saya sampaikan empati dan kepedulian saya.
Indonesia officially became the 60th member of the United Nations on September 28, 1950. After joining the UN, Indonesia played a significant role in Asia decolonization movement and became a founder of the non-aligned movement in 1961, led by first President Sukarno. In 1973 and during the Cold War, Indonesia took the role in mediating regional conflicts such as the Korea-Vietnam conflict. Indonesia also contributed in the UN peacekeeping mission in East Timor, which is known as Timor-Leste now. Following the East Timor conflict in 1999, Indonesia decided to hold a referendum on East Timor's independence under the UN monitoring. The referendum resulted in East Timor's independence, with the new country changing its name to Timor-Leste 3 years later in 2002. Indonesia has been actively involved in various UN programs and other organizations. The country has been appointed twice as the UN Security Council's non-permanent member for the period of 1973, 1974 and 2007 to 2008. During its journey as UN member, Indonesia has been actively participating in helping solve various global issues, including climate change, international trade, poverty elevation, human rights, and world peace. Indonesia also took part in the achievement of Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals.
It's great to see when it comes to Indonesia's involvement in the UN. Indonesia has been actively participating in trying to solve so many global issues, from climate change, the eradication of certain diseases, and also for the Sustainable Development Goals. So really encouraging to see that. But actually, Audrey, Indonesian diplomats have been pursuing the effort to maintain peace and stability in our country even before we gained our independence.
Wow,
exactly.
So they're quite key in that role to
very pivotal,
especially Indonesia's involvement or further involvement with the UN.
Exactly. So if I can turn back in history to see how Indonesian diplomats have been making their mark in the United Nations since 76 years ago, where a group of Indonesian diplomats were appointed to conduct a series of negotiations to fight for acknowledgement on Indonesia's independence at the United Nations Security Council meeting. Now, here are a short bio of the 5 diplomats.
Hit the record button. Double O. Hit the double O. Hit double O. Hit double O. Hit double O. Hit
Well, there was a list of important key people who were responsible, especially for ensuring that Indonesia could be a part of the UN Security Council. And Siska, fun fact is that in 2019, up to our tenure in 2020, Indonesia was a member of the UN Security Council. And I remember that was a big year for Indonesia. When I was in New York, I met with one of the heads of the council, and he was like, wow, this is one of the busiest year for our country.
Wow,
because
I can only imagine.
Yeah, there were so many, I'm sure that there were so many things on their plate, and because the Security Council is responsible for of solving and having solutions to these very complex, intricate world issues. Indonesia, being one of the members of it, I'm sure, needed to really step up its game and be able to also offer something to the table. So seeing the legacies of these diplomats, even from years ago, from 76 years ago, it's quite apparent that now it is quite worth it.
Exactly. So as the diplomats that we just saw on the list there, Haji Agus Salim, Sultan Syahrir, Sujatmoko, Sumitro Joyo Hadikusumo, and Charles Tambu, who proved 76 years ago that the surest way to peace and stability is actually diplomacy. I mean, you can fight online, you can, put all your might, but when it's come down to it, what works best is diplomacy. So hopefully this will inspire a lot of young people, especially our viewers, to always try to pursue peace first through diplomacy. And I think that is one of the best takeaways we can take from today, the UN Day celebration.
Yes, I like those closing remarks, Siska, to pursue peace as well as diplomacy on this UN Day. And what are some of your hopes as well for this particular day in Indonesia?
Well, I hope that Indonesia can take a stronger stand at the UN, not just to represent our country, but because we are also sort of like the leader of the region. So hopefully they can take up, more problems of the region to be solved internationally in the UN. I would love to see Indonesia to take up more stands on climate change, because as a region, we are experiencing a lot of those effects from the climate change. And I hope that can influence the bigger and more powerful countries in the UN to also take more action in it.
Indeed, I echo all of your all of your insightful statements, and do hope that this will be a continued collaboration as well as cooperation between Indonesia and the UN. Well, that wraps up today's edition of Starting Point. We've had a great, delightful conversation on today's UN Day. For now, I'm Audrey Toyo.
And I'm Siska Becker. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Starting Point. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Membership in the United Nations is a commitment towards international cooperation.